All right. Welcome, everyone, on this long holiday weekend. Thank you for joining me. So, we are going to be talking this week about writer scams and how to recognize them. Never give a sucker an even break. There seems to be an uptick in writer scams lately, and they've been starting to annoy me to the point where I'm like, people need a warning. Now, there's plenty of warnings out there, but one more voice giving a warning might catch people who are missing some of the other ones. So I am going to be talking about how to recognize these things, what to avoid, where they might not be scams, but you got to be careful.
I want my money! Give me my money!
There's our soup clip from this week. For if you're not familiar with the IT crowd, it is an extremely funny British series about a team of guys in IT at a British department store, and it's some of the better British humor I've ever seen. Because, of course, it's time now for paying for the soup. You've all seen this already, but I do want to mention it this week in particular. We've got our making story models on the right, of course, tools for visualizing your story. But on the left, we have a Fine and Dangerous Season, which is now officially out as of yesterday. It is released for Kindle and it is released for print. And it is my book about two science fiction writers, their editor, and a comatose mathematician facing danger and intrigue and mystery from ancient Celtic spirits that use their own stories as weapons against them. Available now on Kindle and print. And I'm really, really happy with this book and hope that more people find it and enjoy it. This is one that, again, I wrote thanks in part to Jenna. Thank you, Jenna, because she was posting the daily prompts for Firetober in October 2023. And I turned each prompt into a short story. And then about 5 or 6 days in, I started seeing a novel behind the stories. And this is the result. All right. You know our rule, tools, not rules. Bit of a contradiction there, a paradox that this is a rule, but this is our principle, tools, not rules. It's not going to apply too much to this week. This week is less about rules than it is about things to be on watch for. But that principle, tools, not rules, is because there is no rule that always works, or no rule that if you break it, you will always fail, as Goldman told us. Nobody knows anything. And even if I call it a rule, it's still a tool. So that gets our introduction out of the way. The first thing I want to talk about when it comes to writer scams is writer beware. I am doing this tiny, tiny sliver of all the scams out there. A very, very high level overview. Writer beware has been documenting scams for 25 years now. A.C. Crispin, the original creator of Writer Beware, passed away almost a decade ago now, I think. And Victoria Strauss has taken up her mantle, documenting scams. When in doubt, when something sounds too good to be true, it probably is, but go to Writer Beware and look for it. An awful lot of what I'm sharing here are lessons that Writer Beware taught me. So go to them and learn from them. I'm just giving you a quick introduction. And Bex is joining us. So, hello, Bex. Good to have you join us. Hope you're having a great holiday weekend. So, again, Writer Beware is a better source than me, but I'm hoping I can give you some good high level overviews on things to watch out for. Yeah, man. Now, there are lots of scams in contracts. I'm not going to repeat those. I pretty much already covered this in our Jazz Sessions number 4 on contract clauses I wouldn't sign. Just because something is in writing in a legal document doesn't make it not a scam. And many of the things in the contracts that we looked at are rights grabs that once you sign them over, you lose control of your own material for somebody who is going to make lots of money on it, they think, or potentially make money on it and cut you out. So consider that whole session, number 4, which is on my web page and on my YouTube channel. Consider that to be the first hour of this talk, because those contracts are scams. All right. I'm going to talk about lots of specific scams, but here's a big red flag that you should consider to be almost always a sign of a scam. They contact you. An agent contacts you out of the blue and says, I want to represent you, and if we just do this and this and this, we can get your book in front of Hollywood movers and shakers and get you a wonderful, wonderful contract and get your movie made from your book, which hasn't even been published yet. Agents don't have time to go scouting like that. Okay, a really new agent might, but as a general rule, they've already got more queries than they can handle, more business than they can handle. This is not how they find new writers. They have ways of finding new writers, and we'll talk about that. But they generally have more queries than they can handle. Publishers have more submissions than they can handle. They don't contact you out of the blue and say, hey, I'm going to take this and I'm going to make it big for you if you just give us a little bit of money. Now, in both of those cases, there are exceptions. I am told, this is not my genre, but I am told that in the lit RPG genre, the publishers hang out on Royal Road and scout the stuff that people are publishing there, self-publishing, and saying, hey, I like this, let's talk. But notice that you have put it out in a very specific place where you know they are scouting. You know that that is why you're on Royal Road. In general, a publisher contacting you out of the blue is a scam. Agents, well, if you've done something that got their attention, yeah, agents are going to contact you. And I have to admit, this happened to me. Back a long time ago now, it feels like ancient history practically, I wrote a short story called Today I Am Paul. And that short story became very, very successful very quickly because I happened to strike lightning with that one. And it got nominated for a Nebula Award. That very day, 3 different agents contacted me. And these were 3 different agents that I knew and could verify who they were. So something had happened that drew their attention. You'll know if somebody's contacting you because you did something notable that drew attention. And I'm sorry, publish your book and put out a press release is not notable. Publish your book and Oprah praised it on her webpage. That's notable. Publish your book and, oh, by the way, you're a famous athlete is notable. But publish your book and put it out there, that's highly unlikely to be notable. So if they contact you, they're probably selling something. Some other big red flags to look for, and we'll hit some of these in the different scams we're going to be talking about. One is pathetic Amazon rankings. If that publisher says, hey, we've published this and this and this, go look at the Amazon rankings for the things they claim to have published. If you can't find the things, that's a huge red flag. But when you find the things, If you're not familiar with Amazon rankings, it is a number from 1 to essentially infinity, but for all practical purposes, several millions of how high you ranked on the sales list. 1 is you were the best selling thing on Amazon this week. And notice it's on Amazon. It's not in a very, 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 very sub niche on Amazon. It's not the best cooking show fantasy story among US readers. Okay, that's not a real niche on Amazon, but some of their niches are practically that small. Those small niches, you can reach number 1 by making a sale because nobody else is selling in there. You're looking for the Amazon ranking, and those small niches are wonderful opportunities to brag about your book. I don't put them down. They are ego boost, but they are not measures of your success. Number 1 on Amazon is, oh, wow, you are selling books. I don't have a hard rule for the Amazon rankings. I have a soft rule. I know how much my own books are selling, and I compare it to my rankings. And if my books are selling in the 100 to 200,000 ranking, which is not unusual for me, I can go and look and see, oh, I sold 2 copies this week. That's where I'm at. If somebody's in the 500,000 to a million range, they're not even selling 2 copies. They're selling nothing. If they're up in the plus million range, they aren't actually doing anything. They're essentially listing the book on Amazon, but that doesn't mean anybody's seeing it, anybody's noticing it, anybody's buying it. So pathetic Amazon rankings are usually a sign that, hey, they went through the motions, but they're not accomplishing anything. And if you can put it up yourself and be in that same sales range, then what are you getting out of them aside from a big dent in your pocketbook? Overseas phone numbers, when you get texts out of the blue for somebody who's going to make you famous, look up that phone number on any search engine. Almost guaranteed the phone number will not be in that search engine, but you just copy and paste it in anyway, and the search engine will say, oh, this is a number in the Philippines or Nigeria, although these days the Philippines are the place where most of the scams come out of because it's extremely expensive to prosecute a case against somebody in the Philippines for the US. If it's an overseas phone number and they're claiming to be Macmillan Publishers, why the heck is Macmillan Publishers calling you from a number in the Philippines? Similarly with the email addresses and the contact channels, they should be legitimate. You will not find somebody who is a professional in the business who is sending you email about your book from a Yahoo address. Then, of course, anytime they're pressuring you, the rule for me for pressure is if it's that important that you have to pressure me, then I guess I'm the wrong person for you. Goodbye, click. Another one is they know nothing about your work. Now, unfortunately, this one is going away. This red flag is becoming almost useless because they know nothing about your book. But if your writings are out there anywhere accessible, they can go to AI and say, tell me about this book. And AI will give them a nice little summary and talk about the notable things and so on. So when they contact you, they sound like they know what they're talking about. So just because they know something about your work does not in itself make them legitimate. All right, the first one are our fake literary agents, and I touched on that a little bit. Some great advice from Mike Resnick when I was at the Writers of the Future workshop. You need a good agent. Any agent you can get at this stage in your writing career isn't a good agent. It's a paradox. It was Mike saying agents can help you, but you have to, you have to earn the agent's attention. If you haven't earned their attention and they're talking to you anyway, at best, they are a new, hungry, desperate agent. At worst, they're a scam. Now, you are a new writer. Maybe you conceivably want to give a new agent a chance if you have a good relationship with them, maybe. Because just like new writers, writers have to come from somewhere. Writers are all new writers at some point. Good agents were new agents at some point. But you got to have a lot of trust. You have to have some good idea of what they're capable of. But we're talking there about real agents. Let's talk here about scammer agents. These are agents, again, tend to find you out of the blue that are going to make you rich and famous, but there's just a few things they need. Perhaps they need money to read your book. Click. As soon as they want money to read your book, click. Agents make their money from selling your book. If they're asking for money for you, it's done. But they will often try to hide this, that it's not you're paying them for reading. They're saying, I can't present this to Macmillan right now because it needs some editing. And I know a great editor who will do this editing for you. Yeah, that great editor is sitting on the other side of the desk from them waiting to get you hooked. And they're going to charge you ridiculous, overpriced editing for something that is junk. At best, they're going to put you through an AI editing tool, which you could do yourself. But they will say that they're going to charge you for editing. They're going to say they will charge you for submission services because Houghton Mifflin or Macmillan or whoever, they won't look at your book without a payment. Click. Yes, they will. Now, they may not look at your book for other reasons, but no reputable publisher wants to be paid to read your work. I didn't mention it on here. I think I may mention it on another slide. One of their favorite scams is book trailers. I can sell this if you have a book trailer. I could really do great if you have a book trailer. And I know somebody who can put together a book trailer for the low, low price of $6,000 or $7,500 if you want the good trailer. That's a scam. First of all, I don't know about you, I have never bought a book because of a book trailer. I have only watched 2 book trailers in the last year that happen to be visually appealing, but they aren't really good advertisements. And the industry is really split right now, but I don't see a lot of people who are saying, hey, my book trailer sold my book. And second of all, what they're doing for making those trailers is often subpar. At best, it is a AI generated video. And I was experimenting with Grok today because I saw they had a button for that. I hadn't seen it before. I gave them a picture of Larry, my big orange tabby, and Dean, my little gray tabby. Kitten's now almost 6 months old. Dean was sitting on a chair in front of Larry, and I showed that picture to Grok, and it proceeded to animate that picture to have Larry licking Dean and grooming her while Dean purred. I would not say it was Hollywood quality, but it was on a quality par with the book trailers I looked at. So they may be charging you huge tons of money for something that if you really wanted to do it, you could do yourself. Again, if you want to do it, I'm not going to judge you for it, but I don't see a value in book trailers. So some red flags on the fake agents. Again, the unsolicited contact, talking about fees when they haven't sold anything yet, and not having a verifiable track record. They ought to be able to show you the books that they have represented, and you ought to, again, be able to look up their Amazon rankings. And then we have the vanity or the fake publishers. They're trying to pretend they're traditional publishers, trying to talk about how they can do this all for you. And they are going to do this all for you so you don't have to learn all this stuff, but you just have to pay for printing or distribution, co-publishing. You just have to pay for all these upfront costs. And that's not how the business works. There is an old principle going back, probably older than me at this point, called Yogg's Law, Y-O-G. Yogg's Law is money flows toward the writer. You don't put money out. People give you money for the writing. You do not put money out. Now, if you are a self-publisher, you may have to pay for covers. You may have to pay for editing. You may pay for marketing programs, but that is you as the publisher, not as the author. When they are requiring you to pay for all this upfront stuff, you are often going to find that what you get is low quality books, no marketing. Again, check the Amazon rankings. And sadly, many times what you end up with is a garage full of books that you cannot sell for nothing, while you are also seriously poorer. Vanity publishing prices in general start in the 2000 range, but they ain't going to be happy with the 2000 range. They're going to try to get you up into the $6, $8, $10, $20,000 range because they encourage these add-ons. Book trailers is what I mentioned. They encourage all these add-on packages and tell you that we could sell this book if we just got this add-on package. So again, the red flags, look for the pitiful Amazon rankings. If they are guaranteed acceptance, and many of them have learned to say that they aren't, but if they are guaranteed acceptance, that's a huge red flag. There is a famous case. This is now decades old. And it is obviously they would be watching for things like this today, I hope, but maybe they really are still that stupid. There was a famous case where a bunch of science fiction writers at a convention one time decided they were going to skewer one of these vanity publishers, and the collection of them put together the worst book they could possibly write. I think it's called Eye of Argon. The worst book they could possibly write. Different authors writing different chapters without consulting with each other about what the chapters were about. There's one chapter that's out of order. There's another chapter that appears the same chapter in two different places in the book. There are all the worst things that could possibly stick into a book. And the publisher took their money and said, yes, I will publish this book. Guaranteed acceptance is a sign that they want your money, not your book. Any sort of upfront fees, you're after looking for that. And then you also want to be going back and looking at the contracts session we talked about, number 4, to look at their contract terms. But then today there's hybrid publishers. And unfortunately, this term has been hijacked. Once upon a time, not that many years ago, a hybrid author was an author who was traditionally published and also self-published, i.e. me. I am not at all ashamed to say that I am a hybrid author, other than the hybrid name has gotten tainted. But I make, I don't remember my contracts precisely, but it's like 15% on a sale of my traditional books. I make 70% on a sale of my self-published books. Now, my traditionals sell a whole lot more by volume, but those cause people to notice my self-published books, where I turn around and make the 70%. So hybrid's actually a good place to be as an author. But hybrid publishers, most of the time, are just vanity presses that don't want to be called vanity presses, so they're calling themselves hybrid publishers because hybrid is such a clean-sounding name. If they say they're a hybrid publisher, immediately be wary. Sometimes, there are actual legitimate packagers who bring a package of services to you at a reasonable price. So you bring an editor to the project, a formatter, a cover artist. These people all have to be paid. And the publisher paying them makes sense. Essentially, if you think about this as building a house, you could build your own house. You could hire the people to do the foundation. You could hire the people to do the plumbing. You could hire the people to do the wiring and the roofing and so on and so on. Or you could hire a prime contractor who hires all those people. So the model is not inherently bad, but you got to be knowing what you're getting. So a good packager has been vetted by a couple of watchdogs, independent book publishers, Alliance of Independent Authors. Both are keeping their eyes open for legitimate packagers. And I don't even want to call them hybrids. I want to call them packagers. So if you get somebody talking to you about, hey, we're a hybrid press, shop around to see what they've done. Check their sales, check their Amazon rankings, check their references. Go into this, if this is what you're going to do, go into it eyes wide open, because otherwise you're liable to once again have this garage full of books you can't sell. Now, some people, and not just about hybrid publishers, about vanity publishers, some people are natural salespeople. Some people can sell that garage full of books and go back and buy more and sell more. There are a few in the business world. There are a few examples like this. I think Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was originally self-published, essentially the same model as a vanity press, but the man marketed the heck out of them. And there are some others in the business field where these are people who know how to sell things. And for them, a packager is a convenient, cheap way to get their books so that they can go do the hand selling. But you're not expecting a vanity press or a hybrid publisher to do any serious marketing. When they charge you for marketing, that is immediately a red flag, because their marketing sucks. Look at the books they have published. And at the bottom here, in my research, these are 2 that I found were vetted by IBPA or ALLI, BookBaby and She Writes Press. And BookBaby is sometimes partnered with other groups. So for instance, Writer's Digest has their own self-publishing service, but under the hood, it's BookBaby. Neither of these are promising the world. They are packaging a decent bundle of services at a decent price. But for the most part, if they say they're hybrid, they're just vanity. And then there are the marketing services. And these tend to come into my email or my text messages 3 or 4 a week, where they're going to help me market my book. They're going to give me massive exposure, social media, email blasts, ads. What they're going to do is possibly get me canceled out of Amazon. Because when they do succeed in generating these reviews, which many of them don't, but when they do, it's generally fake reviewers. It's bots. They've charged me tons of money, and Amazon is watching for these things. And Amazon is taking you down if you use these things. I'm not naming names, but a publisher I know had to tell his authors at a certain point that, guys, Amazon shut me down. I can't sell your books anymore. I went to a review service and thought, hey, this is a great way to promote my books. And Amazon decided that no, that was not a legitimate service. Now, eventually, Amazon reactivated his account because they were sitting on a lot of money for him. Eventually, they reactivated his account when he turned state's evidence, so to speak, on the service and handed over every bit of correspondence he had with them so that Amazon could chase them down better. But his business was almost destroyed by working with one of these marketing services. But the marketing service had his money, so what do they care? So some of the red flags on bogus marketing is the guarantees, we're going to make you a bestseller. Remember Goldman. No one knows anything out here. If they're telling you guarantees of what they can do for you, click. Sometimes you get messages from other people. Ha ha ha. telling you that this is a great marketing service, because obviously you don't trust the service. You want to hear from independent people. And so some of them are just setting up fake accounts to send messages to people. If you don't see testimonials from known authors and verify it, because they could be lying about those known authors, it's a bogus marketing service. You, again, don't want them contacting you. If you're shopping for marketing services, you want to reach out to them. Okay. And again, part of this is the fake reviewers, the review farms, where they're promising these honest reviews. Sometimes they're using bots. Sometimes they're plagiarizing text from other reviews entirely. You can risk the account bans. If they're talking about bulk review packages, walk away. If they're guaranteeing 5-star reviews, walk away. If you have too many 5 stars that all seem kind of vaguely generic, readers know better. And again, if they're coming from overseas, from Philippines phone number or an odd email address, this is basically a marketing scam, pretty much guaranteed. This next one is trickier. Contests and awards are cool, right? Yes, but contests and awards can be scams. You all know that I am associated with Writers of the Future proudly. Notice that Writers of the Future has no entry fee. That's one really strong indication that they are not about the fees, because some of these contests, they make their money from the fees. They're not about promoting books. They're about promoting the contest to authors who will shell out $150 for a chance to win a prize that doesn't mean much of anything. So if they have unreasonable entry fees, that's a big problem with these scams. Only you can decide what is unreasonable. If somebody tells me they have a $10 entry fee to manage their administration and such, I'm not going to complain too much. I'm really not. Websites have to be paid for, administrators have to be paid. A $10 entry fee, especially for a local contest, doesn't bother me much. A $50 entry fee, I'm starting to worry. $80, $100, these are people who have an incentive to get more people entering, as opposed to an incentive to find good work. You'll have to decide how much is too much. Now, I have paid $80 for a contest, but it was specifically a contest where for that $80, I also got a critique of my manuscript. So I said, I'll give that a try. And I thought the critique was decent. It was a screenplay, which is not my normal place that I work, but I got screenplay critique. And I learned a fair amount about constructing screenplay from that. So the value for me wasn't the contest, which I didn't expect to win, but it was, hey, I'm at least getting an idea of what they look for in these scripts. But that was something I did once. And since then I've said, but I don't feel like doing that again, because it really didn't teach me enough. I could go out and learn, take a screenwriting class and learn more. So they're going to make these big promises of prizes, publication, exposure. Go and look and see what their actual winners are. See how many of the winners have actual success you can point to. Amazon rankings or movies made of their work, or if you see the winners listed and you see so and so won this prize, go to so and so's own social media, go to their biography, see if they mention this prize as being something that actually helped them. Many times the winners aren't legitimate at all. Many times these are things where it's just about getting the money. So look for high fees, vague judging criteria, that it's going to be judged by this panel of experts you've never heard of. We have Dawn Ray joining us. So the judging criteria is vague. If they don't have a history of past winners that you can look up, that's a huge red flag. Okay. Editing and ghostwriting scams. Somebody's going to take care of your work and make it great. This becomes trickier. One of the big red flags for this one, again, is them contacting you as opposed to you looking for them. Because there are good editors out there. And it takes a little more work, but there are good ghostwriters out there. But they take time to trace down and to verify. Unfortunately, here, the difference between a good editor and a scam editor is hard to tell sometimes because a good editor ain't cheap. And a scam editor is going to take you for every penny they can. So you really need to be, in the case of editing and ghostwriting, you need to be verifying, you need to be vetting, you need to be talking to past clients and looking at past books and verifying that those really are their clients. Because otherwise you get this incompetent edit that you end up paying for because of their huge charges, but you didn't really get anything out of it. Again, often they just do AI generated slop. They do AI generated ghostwriting, and sometimes they'll do AI generated editing. And, you know, some of the AI editing is getting okay compared to what some people can do themselves. I happen to think I do a better job. But if they're just running through an AI engine, then you could do the same thing yourself. Often they are charging for essentially running your stuff through an AI prompt. You don't need that. Often the results you get, subpar work, you need to be a good enough reader to recognize that it's subpar, which means you also need to have a way of test it. Any editor, any ghostwriter, they should do a certain amount of work up front for free so that you can look and say, hey, I think this is good work. Let me give you money. If they are not willing to do a audition, essentially, dump them. If they won't give samples and you can't look up their credentials and they want the payment up front, these are signs that this is someone who is just going to give you garbage and leave you poorer. I have a real hard time with that word, poorer. Poorer. It just comes out poorer. It's like the recent joke I saw online. Is squirrel one syllable or two? For some people, it's squirrel, and for other people, it's squirrel. You'll sometimes see people offering to adapt your book to film, and they're again coming at you out of the blue. They want to adapt your book to movie or series, but they first have to have a pitch package or a script treatment or other things that they have to charge you through the nose for. And that's all to never actually produce a bloody thing from what you've done. It glitters with Hollywood dreams for those indie authors. They are promising the moon, and you are getting nothing but poorer. Poorer. And some of the red flags there are, again, unsolicited offers came at you, fees for development. When you look them up on IMDb, you can't find them. Now, this gets a little tricky. And I have some advice for you. If you are actually even vaguely interested in film adaptations, then you need IMDb Pro. It's not a huge subscription, but it's not free like regular IMDb. But the depth of information about who people are and what projects they worked on is significantly greater on IMDb Pro. So if you're going to be looking up these people to say, is this a scammer or not? They might not be on IMDb under their regular name, and they might still be legitimate because they may be a studio or something like that. So if you're going to be vetting these producers, you want IMDb Pro. I have used it less than once a month since I signed up for it, but there have been times where, and often it's not for me, often it's for a friend asking, but there have been times I've been able to verify people or verify that nobody knows anything about this person. This is a person to stay away from. It's also a way to contact people. You get contact information in IMDb Pro that you don't get in regular IMDb. Doesn't mean they'll answer, but you can get contact information. So I was able to send an email to Meg Ryan's agency so that I could ask her if she would do the audio narration on my book, The Mother Anthony, because in my head, it's Meg Ryan reading that book. They never answered, but I had a contact place to send the question to. And if anybody happens to know Meg Ryan, I really, really, really want her reading that book, but I'll take what I can get. But that's not the end of book to film adaptation scams. Some of the legitimate producers, legitimate as in they actually have projects that they've worked on, they're quote unquote legitimate. They're essentially rights grabbing. They're hoping to give you a little bit of money for something they can turn into lots of money. Was it Mike or Dave? One of them was talking about how some of these producers literally work out of their beat up old car with their briefcase and their business cards in the back, and they go from studio to studio making pitches, but they have no real presence and they have not a whole lot of track record. But boy, if they can turn around and get your rights for cheap and you happen to have something good, it's gold for them. Sometimes they'll turn it into a real deal. Impersonation scams can be part of many of these other scams, and these are hugely on the rise right now. People who are pretending to be real legitimate people you can look up. They use the name of an actual agent or a publisher or an author. Often they do so by fake URLs and fake email addresses. And Writer Beware talks about impersonation scams a lot. It's preying on people's, I won't call it ignorance, I'll call it innocence. Things they don't know about the business. And so it looks like a legitimate name. I'll make one up because I can't remember a particular one, but I saw one recently which was something like Penguin Random Audiobooks was wanting authors to publish their audiobooks through them. And that's like Penguin Random House's audiobook division, right? No, no. PenguinRandomAudiobooks.com was not Penguin Random House in any way, shape, or form. It was a scammer who was stealing their look, stealing their name, stealing their icons, and putting up a fake site that looked like something you'd expect from Penguin Random House. But if you went to the actual Penguin Random House site and then searched for this division of Penguin Random House, it doesn't exist. There are hundreds of fake Amazons out there, Amazon impersonators, with different variations of AmazonSelfPublishing.com, AmazonKindlePub.com, KindlePublisher.com, etc., etc., etc. Amazon stuff will always be at Amazon.com. If it's any name other than Amazon.com, it's not Amazon. Now, some of it may be subdomains. KDP.Amazon.com is where you publish your self-published work. AuthorCentral.Amazon.com is where Amazon authors look up the performance of their books and so on. But AmazonPublishing.com is not Amazon. So they're going to offer you deals, then they're going to request payments or some other sensitive info that will give them access to your bank, and you're taken. So look for the variations. Like the one example is, if you look real close, GMAII.com is not GMAIL.com. It looks like it, but it's not. The phoners web addresses and the urgent demands that we need to get this taken care of right away because they can't afford people who take a long time to hook. They're counting on volume. They're not counting on having to talk you into it. So if it becomes urgent, it's probably an impersonation scam. And this ties into the general phishing of unsolicited email and DM scams, promising publishing opportunities. The links go to malware. I can't be your adult holding your hand on this stuff. You need to, and probably already have, learned to recognize a lot of malware and a lot of phishing. But some things to look for is the poor grammar and the generic praise. But again, these days the praise might not be generic because they've got AI writing it for them. And any attachment coming from out of anywhere, that is a real sign of trouble. Maybe. Maybe not, but maybe. Probably. But you never know. On Friday, I got email from publicmedianet.org from a woman named Angela Logan. And the subject was remittance document. And inside was a link to a Word document, supposedly. And I'm like, this has all the signs of malware, but publicmedianet.org is the umbrella organization for public radio and public television and other public arts programs in Kalamazoo, 40 minutes away from me. And they sponsor an audio theater group that I spent some time with before I decided that it wasn't the right thing for me. And Angela Logan, I think, was one of the people there from that group. And so it's like, this has some signs of legitimacy, even though it has also signs of phishing scam. So I went to the website, not the one in the email, the one that showed up on a web search and verified, yes, that's Public Media Net. That's the one, and that's the email address. I found her page on that site, and it had her email address, just the same one that the thing came from, and it had her office phone number. So I called the phone number, and I did this at 4 o'clock Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. So it's pretty late in the day. She was out, but an assistant answered the phone and said, I don't know what this is about, but that is a legitimate email address. She's my boss. And I don't know what this is about, but it looks to me legitimate. I mean, well, that doesn't mean I want to click it anyway. But at that point, I sent her an email saying, did you send this to the wrong person? Because I'm not aware of you having any need to remit anything to me or vice versa. Maybe you sent this to the wrong person. Now, of course, it's a holiday weekend. I have not heard back from her. But that's the sort of due diligence you have to do on an unsolicited email coming in that you think might have a legitimate purpose. Then you need to find it from investigate it from some completely other avenue than the message itself. Don't trust the message. Go to where the message claims to be from. This one is interesting because in theory, it might not be bad, but in practice, it seldom pays off. There are places out there you can do interviews, print interviews, podcasts, TV spots, or whatever, where you just have to pay for quote unquote production or placement. Now, is that automatically bad? Well, look at their actual reviews, research them, look at how much play they get. Look at authors they've recently promoted on their broadcasts, their podcasts, or whatever, and see how they're selling. It might be okay, but do the research. And if they're wanting payment for this, they are essentially, I mean, this is predates radio. This goes back into magazines way back 100 years ago. That if you just buy an article in our magazine, you will get all sorts of publicity. And maybe you got to research and see how much visibility you actually get. If it's an obscure outlet that you've never heard of before and no one you know has ever heard of before, and you can't find anything about them in the web as you search, that's pretty obscure. And often, if they get you to bite on a small package, they want to sell you the bigger package and the bigger package and the bigger package. That's probably pay to play at that point. This is a relatively new one. People who are saying, our AI tools will write your bestseller for you. They're essentially being honest that they are an AI ghostwriting scam. That they are saying, hey, you can get a great bestseller and it'll be fast and it'll be easy. Variation of this one I just saw on Facebook today. Give us your book and some money. And they didn't even lie about the money. They were talking about thousands of dollars. Give us your book and some money, and we will make a movie out of your book. And you'll have it overnight. So they're honest about what they're doing. But look at the quality of what you're getting. It might be generic, plagiarized, unethical content, going to get you in trouble with the community, and maybe be nothing readers want to look for. If they're claiming that you will get original AI output without human oversight, you've got to have human oversight. If you're going to choose to do AI, you could do it yourself. You don't really need to be doing it through them. But you have to have a human look at it to see if the result is any good at all. And they will have subscription traps where you need to subscribe for this service and this service and this service, and it all adds up. So it seems like gold, but it's fool's gold, pyrite. This one is related, and this one doesn't hit everybody, but if you're like me, where you're dictating, or Jenna, hi Jenna, there are people out there who will promise that they will type up your dictation files for you. There are reasons, and these reasons are becoming less every month, but there are reasons why some people prefer a human being to type the manuscript, not an algorithm, because they think that a human being is more attentive to the work. Now, the AI algorithms are getting really good, but there are still those who prefer the human transcription. But some of these services will take your file and immediately feed it right through the same software you could have done yourself, and then charge you $1 a minute for the transcription. It ain't going to cost you $1 a minute to run it through yourself. My voice is getting a little hoarse here. It's a good thing we're near the end. Similarly, they may promise you custom illustrations, and then they're going to perhaps use the same stock art sites you could use, or plagiarize, or use AI tools you could use. If you're talking to an illustrator, you need to be talking to a real human being with a real relationship and see how their work looks and see their process and negotiate a price. And don't expect it to be cheap unless you've got a really strong social relationship with them. Somebody who's promising you good art cheap, I mean, it's not impossible. Fiverr and some of these sites, it's not impossible, but you just got to be really careful with what you're getting. Often you are paying for something that's going to just cost you in the end. And this last one isn't for us, but I've been seeing it so much in the past month that I wanted to say, these people are scams. I want to say 7 or 8 different Facebook ads that I've seen recently, not just ads, but reels that are, hey, want to be audio narrator? For a small fee, we can make you a narrator. We can help you become a narrator. We've got a great class, or we've got these opportunities lined up for you. And I don't know why I, of all people, am getting targeted for this, but I am seeing these. Today I've seen 6. There are some that are quasi-legitimate. There's one called, I believe, Backstage.com, which I've been seeing a lot over this past weekend. And I did the research on this one. Backstage has been in the casting business for small movie and TV and stage parts since 1960. Backstage.com is simply their website. So Backstage, do the research, but Backstage is legitimately a place that people get narration, audio narration gigs. But Backstage is one of, again, 6 I've seen just today. They're everywhere. I don't know why it's coming up, but they're all basically going to prey on the fact that audio narration sounds like such a cool gig because you sit in your own private home and you talk and you make money. Well, first of all, some of these aren't offering you gigs, they're offering you classes. Now, I'm not saying classes aren't valuable for this topic, but you got to research to see if these people have any track record at all. But the ones who are offering gigs, they're offering, which, if you're new to the business, something that sounds, that ain't bad. $250 to do an audio narration. Now, if you've ever actually priced audio narration on a book, $250 is so ridiculously cheap that it's got to be a scam. But then it's like, oh no, it's $250 for a 30-minute part in a larger production. Ah, that's not so bad. $250 for 30 minutes of work, except it's not going to be 30 minutes of work. You're going to have to go through a production process, retakes and stuff. $250 though for a 30-minute gig is probably tempting to a lot of new people. If you're actually in the business, I suspect that's a low figure. But it's not insanely low from my understanding. If you're doing a full audio narration of a book and you have any amount of experience at all, audio books are priced on PFH, per finished hour, which means you pay them for how long the finished book is. And often the production process can be 4 times the time of the actual book, all the editing and so on. And an extremely low price per finished hour is $50. And that's generally a red flag of this is a newbie. This is somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing. And they're going to find that they can't make money at that. 100 is low. 150 is sort of entry level. Good audio narrators are 400, 600 and up. The stars are way up. So if somebody's being paid $250 for a 30-minute audio production, that ain't bad. They're probably not doing the actual production effort on it, but it still feels to me like somebody is raking in money, getting people signed up because, oh, by the way, in order to apply for those, you need to be a subscriber to their site for a low, low cost, which adds up to hundreds of dollars a year. And that only lets you apply. That doesn't get you the gigs. All right. So that's what we have on writer scams and writing related scams. Here's our schedule coming up. Next week, the 7th, the Bradbury method, panning for gold. I've been looking forward to doing this one for a long time. I think you're going to love it. It will make you think. I'm not saying Bradbury's method is right for you, but it'll make you think. And then we have 4 weeks of making story models, and then our tribute to Kevin and Rebecca. And then talking about free fall and spin gravity, marketing for introverts, the one that would have been this week, but I decided too many people were getting caught up in scams. The Whose Story Is It Anyway? Learning from improv. And then in the beginning was the word. I'm going to talk about openings. Again, paying for the soup. A Fine and Dangerous season is out as of yesterday. I hope you love it as much as I loved writing it. It was an experience like no other. It's the book I was meant to write. So, questions on scams? Anyone? All right, got no questions on scams. And we're just about exactly at an hour, so I am ready to stop sharing. I said stop my sharing. All right, I think I am stopped. Okay. And we have one question in the chat. Bex is coming. Oh, yes, Bex has joined us. Thank you, Bex. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, everyone. Where is my Zoom window? Ah, there it is. Stop the share. All right. Okay, I am finally finding my window here. Any final questions on scams? All right, then I will stop recording and I thank you all for joining me and hope you have a good rest of your holiday weekend.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you.